Today we welcome Jared Johnson back to the podcast, fresh off a $100 million year. I'm sorry, $105 million. And that's 74 units, by the way. Pretty impressive. We talk about how one manages 50 deals at a time, across the whole pipeline. One question we ask is, should closers receive commission? Can they receive commission? And of course, we talk about his famous post from the summer about closing $10 million in one day, and you know the rest. By the way, Jared has been doing content this past year. He has a podcast and he's been creating some pretty creative videos, and we dive into that as well. So without further ado, let's get on with the show. It's no secret that most entrepreneurs are busy, and getting them to focus on their underwriting checklist is a full-time job. So when it comes to the business plan, projections, and assumptions, I'm a huge proponent of bringing in an expert. Rapid Business Plans is a trusted partner to small business lenders and their borrowers. They make it easy for entrepreneurs to tell their story in a format bankers love. Their team goes the extra mile to ensure everything is done fast and done right. And they're all based here in the US with employees across 4 different time zones. They just completed an export business plan for one of my borrowers, and they were super happy. We got their CRE expansion loan approved, and now they can move forward in their business with a clear plan. Rapid also offers feasibility studies, which I highly recommend for any independent startup loan. So go to rapidbusinessplans.com for more information and set up your Get Acquainted call today. I'll leave a link in the show notes below. Jared Johnson, thank you so much for taking time out of your valuable day as a top producing BDO to come join us here at the Art of SBA.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me on.
It's not every day we have a $100 million producer here on the podcast. Should we celebrate?
Sure.
Did you celebrate? That's a huge achievement, right?
I think we went to dinner. I was going to work, and I think it was like a Friday, and then my wife was like, no, we need to at least go to dinner. Like, that's a pretty big deal. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll work in the morning instead.
So is working on a Friday night normal in your world?
Yeah. I don't know. I probably work, I don't know. I think I tried to figure it out one time, like somewhere between like 60 and 70 hours a week. Pretty normal.
Okay. Well, let's take it back. So it's funny. I was rewatching the video that we did last time because you're a recurring guest now. We did an episode in 2022, which you can go back and check out. And you had made some sort of side comment kind of in there about, if I got to 100 million, I'd probably be happy for about 20 minutes. And then I'd be like, all right, now what next? Now what? that sort of thing. And obviously, spoiler alert, you did it. You landed at 100 and what was it, 104, 105 million? 7A production. So it's a crazy number. What made you say that comment at the time where you would actually think, I know you're half joking, but you were half serious too.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of how I've always been. And I think if I remember correctly, I was referring to, I was at a conference and I was actually doing a presentation about working capital. And one of the people in the crowd, one of the brokers, said something like, what's the top person do, or how much would you ever want to do, or something. And I said, oh, if I got to 100 million, I'd probably be happy for about 20 minutes and then I'd go right back to work. And I think that's what it was. So I don't know. I guess I've always kind of been that way. I don't get overly excited about accomplishments, and I probably should. But I guess I just kind of expect myself to continue to do more and more and better.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, I have to say this too. You did it through a lot of units. What'd you do, like 60 units?
74.
Okay, 74 units. So
yeah,
average
60
loan,
business acquisitions. Yeah.
60. Okay. So yeah, okay, that's where I got the number from. So, because there are some people that will get to these types of numbers in different ways, like a $3 million average loan, for example, but you're actually churning out units. So what's like, you'll do some smaller loans, I guess, in some cases.
Yeah, I think my average was, I want to say 1.3. But yeah, I try to, you know, move it up a little bit, kind of try to do larger transactions. I mean, everybody wants to do the larger transactions, right? Of course, it makes more sense, it's more efficient, all that good stuff. But at the end of the day, I try really hard to take care of my referral sources, and I also try to take care of borrowers. I mean, it's funny, like I don't really see myself getting super excited about doing huge volume, but I actually do get excited when I close a deal for somebody who was a really cool borrower, really nice, or that I think last year I probably had three, maybe four deals where I had done the original transaction for them 4 or 5 years ago, and then now they were selling the business to someone else. That was exciting to see, another transition. So that type of stuff, I try to never turn away. But most transactions, I try to stay above like 4 or 500,000 if I can.
I wonder if there's a lesson there because if, one of the primary motivators of Jared Johnson is just like small businesses just appreciating what you do for them and how what we do can be life-changing, is life-changing for many of them. What is that relationship like then after they close? Do they is it often that they express that gratitude? Or because I know these things are also hard to get across the finish line. There's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of hard work and fatigue that goes into it. Like, what's the day after closing look like?
Yeah, to be completely honest, I had this conversation with my wife like maybe 2 weeks ago, and I kind of thought it was odd. Sometimes I will close deals, and it's like sometimes I don't even know they closed. I'll get an email showing that it closed out in the system, or sometimes I'll get a call or a text from somebody. And then sometimes I'm so busy going on to the next one that I forget to call them and say, "Hey, congratulations." And I try really hard later on, like a couple of weeks later or something, to call them or email them and just check in with them. Most people are so busy at that point when they close that they don't have time to digest it. It's like, okay, I got through this whole process, but that now I got to take over a business. I have to go let a bunch of employees know that I'm going to be their new owner, and so on and so forth. So I try to like give them a little bit of time to decompress and then try to reach back out to them later. But I have several that almost turn into friends too, where they'll kind of later on, "Hey, how you doing? Just checking in with you." And then there's somewhere I even, a couple years later, they'll reach out, and it takes me a minute to try to remember who they were and everything. So
It's crazy when you can do deal and like almost forget you did the deal.
oh yeah, yeah. I asked you that the other day. I said, "Do you remember? Do you forget people's names?" And you said, "Yeah, I don't even remember my own name sometimes." And I feel like I say that all the time. Yeah, it's crazy. We just talk to so many people, and there's just so many things moving through the system. I mean, I would venture to guess that I'm working on between just starting on something all the way through in closing, about to close, probably 50 to 60 transactions at a time. And so it's really difficult to keep up with all of that.
Right. And you're doing that with essentially two assistants, which we'll get to later a little bit about, the help and how you manage this level of workload. But sticking on this topic, I think every borrower is different. You click with different borrowers. There's borrowers that don't want to do anything without calling me first. And then there's some borrowers that will start working with my loan coordinator and, that's it, right? I might be brought in once, to solve some sort of issue, but the relationship is barely even mine by the end of the closing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's odd, right? I mean, there's some that you feel maybe need their handheld, or kind of need you to be working with them. And then there's other ones that will just say, okay, I trust these people to get me through the process, and they're really good about providing items, and it just sails through and they get it done.
Yeah, I think you kind of have to embrace your model, whatever it is, because if I really wanted to create a borrower relationship that was just like rock solid, I'd be talking to them every day or every other day. But there's no way I'm going to scale to 100 million doing that, right? You can't.
Right.
So then you kind of have to be okay with the fact that, yeah, they're coming to me because I have a reputation to get deals done, and that's why. But then you don't, because you can't, because if I heard you say you're not knee deep into all your closings all the time, right? So, there might be 30, 60 days between approval closing, and you might have not had any involvement. And then you come back in at closing and be like, hey, you're welcome, but like, where were you the last 2 months?
Yeah, exactly. Or I think I've got some great closers, and so a lot of times they kind of know that I'm slammed, but then I also trust them to get it done without me having to kind of follow them around and make sure it's getting done properly. But then they will reach out to me if there's an issue and say, hey, I'm kind of stuck or can't get a hold of somebody or whatever. I've even had a couple where the borrower or the broker is actually being mean to them. And I'll jump in real quick on that and shut it down. So they usually know, hey, if we got an issue here, they'll call me. But otherwise, yeah, most of the time they're just getting stuff done.
Well, that is interesting. I mean, by the nature of your business and your volume, you have to do it that way. But I know that's a dilemma for a lot of SBA lenders to relinquish that level of control. Were you always like that, or were you ever like super involved with your closings where you literally took the checklist and then started chasing down like insurances? Did you ever do it that way?
Yeah, I would say even up until probably 3 or 4 months ago, that's how I was. I would follow through
Really?
on every single thing. I would spend a lot of time on the closings.
So what's that transition been like for you?
It's kind of interesting because it's hard, right? If you do something the same way for 12, 15 years and then all of a sudden say, okay, I'm going to trust somebody to take it on for me. That part's kind of difficult, but at the end of the day, it's almost like how many nights can I work till midnight? How many days can I, you know, sit there and say, is this worth doing anymore? And really, if you're trying to get to that high of a level, you have to let go of some of it, right? So it's kind of a transition period, and then so far it's worked out fine. There hasn't really been any issues.
Isn't it amazing that, you have to do all those things to make sure your closings go smoothly, and then when you take a step back, miraculously, everything is fine?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of it is just who you're working with, right? I mean, I've got some great people like working with me, so that makes it a little bit easier. But I've been at some shops, and we've even had some closers previously that I've worked with where you have to do that, right? You have to keep kind of poking them, and then also following up, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to. Um, but it's you're only as good as the other people working on stuff with you, right?
I never understood the model of SBA and closing, like how we've evolved into this Amazon speed, quick, fast model, and yet, let me be careful here. So the other day I was on a call, and I said, in front of everyone, like I would trust my closer, Shalise, with my life. Literally, I'd let her do heart surgery on me. It doesn't mean she's perfect and will never make a mistake, but I have 100% trust in her, and so that's how I operate. Closing is like the most important part. And look,
And
first
it's
of
a
all,
tough job at the end of the day. I mean, we
it's a
both will absolutely agree on that.
it's the toughest job. We always say, but why are we doing it like this? That's why I don't understand. It's just it. There's no incentive, right? First of all, there's no incentive to work 60 hours in a week. Why would you? I wouldn't expect that because
Right.
there's no incentive there. Now, people talk about the incentives and protecting the guarantee. And that I understand that argument of like, yeah, we don't want to pay closers commission because like we want them to close compliant loans, and we don't want there to be anything. And even SBA might not even like that. Fine, I get it. But like, can we not, pay like I feel like the pay range, I don't know, I'm not an expert here, but like there's like a range. Like the range should probably be a lot bigger because there's some amazing closers that should probably be getting paid double. And then there's some that should probably be doing something else. And, the ones I work with here, I'm lucky we have all A closers. It's rare. Trust me. I've been
Mhm.
everywhere, but the fact of the matter is the demands of the market are so insane. The folks buying businesses are sometimes searching for a year, 2 years before they find their business, and they need to close, and it's got to be efficient, and they need communication, going around the clock, and they want to hit their date, and that's a lot of pressure. And I just with them, I wouldn't expect, somebody to take that on their shoulders unless there was some change in the incentive structure or just the entire setup of how we're doing this. Like maybe it's time to take a step back and kind of just rethink things a little bit, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I would be very curious if there is any kind of regulation or true risk to pay them incentive. I definitely think on the credit side we can't pay them any kind of incentive to approve something. But at the end of the day, like if you have the proper people in place to spot check the files before you actually close and wire funds, then you should be okay with paying a closer some incentive to get it done. Maybe you set it up by a certain time period that they have to close, or maybe it's you do a survey at the end, and based on how the BDO and the borrower and the referral source rate you get paid or something. I don't know. There's got to be a way to incentivize them and make them feel like there's something at risk there, right?
I think there's about to be a big problem for a lot of banks. We're all spread so thin, only once we know of a problem in the portfolio do we put resources on it. We are reactive, not proactive. But I have good news. Our friends at Lumos have a way to score the loans in your portfolio so you can see which loans have a higher chance of having problems, so you can get out in front and help prevent defaults before they occur. Their analysis will provide an overview of your predicted portfolio performance, allowing you to analyze the data on all sorts of levels. You can look at the portfolio as a whole, or by subcategories like industry or geography, or you can go loan by loan and look at the predicted expected loss and probability of default. And you can track these numbers over time so you can start to see trends in your portfolio. Now you have no excuse. You can finally take care of your portfolio the way you should be without having to hire a team of analysts, because Lumos did that for you. Go to lumosdata.com for more information. Going back to like why you have this mentality, I'm basically why I'm trying to say like why you're so screwed up in the head. No, I'm just kidding. So you posted on LinkedIn the other day, serious post. Sorry. So first of all, great marketing strategy there for anyone listening. That's a good way to start a post, because how are you not going to read the next line, right? He could have put, there's a new 1919 form, and you at least would have now seen it because he put serious post dash sorry. So marketing tip, bring people in. Okay. Now, when you're reading it, you're saying, I find myself slightly perplexed when it comes to this achievement. For example, today I closed 10 million and it was probably the most I closed in a single day, but I didn't really feel much excitement. I'm well over my goal. And it goes on. And essentially the idea is like, are we ever going to be happy? And I think and we've been talking about this, and it's like, well, let me ask you this first. Why did you write the post?
I don't completely know. I guess just trying to be real. I feel like so much of social media is just, fake BS, and it drives me nuts. That everybody's always happy, every deal is perfect, everything is great, and it's like it's far from the truth, right? And so I guess I was essentially trying to just be real and kind of put it out there. I don't know, maybe I just felt like I needed to, but it was just also, I think I was just trying to get people to understand, like, this is not easy. It's very stressful. It's a lot of time commitment. I need people to help me in order to be successful. And so I think that was kind of the main thing.
It was a cry for help, and everyone came in and it probably was, and this is another marketing lesson, even though, I wouldn't say that was necessarily marketing, but it was really, the thing is with marketing, everything is marketing, and you going out and being authentic is marketing, because people want to do business with authentic people. And and people did, hear your cry and came to you and commented. And it was probably one of your most engaging posts, really, because so many people identified with that, right? Even I did. So what was it like hearing like all the outreach from your like fellow BDO brothers and sisters?
Yeah, it was great. It made me feel really good. Like it was like almost like made me a little emotional, and I don't get very emotional. And so it was kind of interesting. I think probably the person I talked to the most was Alan, who was on episode 74. If you haven't listened to it,
Was it 74?
um, I think it was. I mean, hopefully
Yeah,
this
no, I
one
think you're
will
right.
be.
Because he has a jersey that has number 74 on it.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, hopefully this one will beat that one, like I did in production. But you know, I love Alan. But yeah, so I think he called me and was just like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I mean, I really appreciated that. Like, you want to talk to me. There's a couple of Shane Pearson reached out to me. I mean, there's so many people that like just kind of said, "Hey, go read this or go do that." Will sent me a book. Like it was really cool. Like you think these people kind of don't pay attention, and we're all so busy and just work so much with our heads down that we don't take time to kind of be real with each other and spend time with each other. So it felt kind of good that other people like recognize that they've been there, they've been through that, and they took time out of their day to come talk to me. It was nice.
I appreciate it. And, and again, this isn't really like, oh, we're complaining because, I'm too successful, I'm making too much money, and now I want to complain, right? This is more about like, there's BDOs listening that want to get to the next level, and it might be a different number for everyone, but when you get there, it might not feel like what you thought it would feel like. That's really the point. In fact, there's sacrifices that are real sacrifices that you and your family have to make in order to do something, to the point where you might not want to do it. And that's why we have this podcast and talk, because you should know, like you said, not just, hey, closed this loan, this loan, this loan, everything is amazing. And then you don't realize, they're crying on their keyboard because they're so overwhelmed. So like, are there real sacrifices that you're making to put up these numbers?
Yeah, a million percent. I mean, I yeah, it's hard, man. I mean, there's times where like my kids will come in and it's 8 p.m. and they're like, "I'm going to bed, give me a hug." And I'm kind of like, "Oh man, I feel like a jerk." Like the whole reason that I wanted to be successful and I wanted to make money was so that my kids had a better life than I had, right? But then if I'm not spending time with them, like who cares, you know? But then at the end of the day, like I think there's like goals there's steps there like that you need to take in order to kind of get there. You have to find, I guess, some kind of happy medium. But I don't know, I mean, I guess the other thing too is just like my wife is amazing. Like if I didn't have like someone like that can put up with it and say, hey, not only encourages me to continue to push and she takes the time to celebrate me, but then like also at the same time like is willing to understand that there's plenty of times I got to work till midnight, and I can't go sit and watch TV and hang out.
Yeah, no, and I really appreciate all your transparency around this, because I think this is an amazing conversation. Because look, you cannot do, I don't care who you are, if you worked 24/7, you could not do 100 million a year for the next 10 years without like, no matter what. Like there are conditions, everything has to be you have to be in the right place at the right time. You have to have laid the groundwork. It's like everything coming together so that you can have this sort of run of excellence that, it just can't last forever. And so you have to, or maybe you think it might not last forever, right? So then you have to do it while you're doing it, because you can't just turn away the ability to produce, the ability to give loans to these small businesses, the ability to bring in loans for your institution, the ability to make money. You don't want to just turn that off while you're in the zone, right? Like, so you have to do it now. And hopefully one day, you'll be able to look back and be like, wow, that was that was amazing time. And, I worked hard and I worked my butt off, but like I'm just glad I took the most from that period of time. And, and you go from there. Cause like, I assume your production over the last 20 years, like probably, what is it like in probably not 100 million, right? There's years you did
Yeah.
20 million, 25 million, 50 million, like categorize that for me.
Yeah, I don't think I've done under 25 since what, 2013 maybe. So it's probably 10 years of somewhere between 25 and 50, and then last year doing 100. So yeah, I don't know, do the
That's like a
math, probably
spike. It's a big spike.
500. Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, totally get that. Now, my question is, how are you doing it?
Yeah, I mean, I think like it helps, like the longevity. Like, let's see. So you sent out an email the other day, or no, maybe you made a post about if a BDO is jumping from place to place, like essentially don't trust them. And
Well,
come on, man.
go ahead.
Remember, we're being transparent today. So yeah, and like I think part of it is obviously staying somewhere, and your pipeline builds up, a production keeps rolling. You start to develop a rapport with credit, all that kind of stuff. But then also, like, so I've had an assistant on the front end that helps package the file, put it together, run credit, put stuff in Encino, all that good stuff. That was definitely, and I actually shared him with our second top producer, Eve, who kills it as well. I think she did 87 million or something crazy like that. Then we finally were able to kind of break it off and just have one person, which still was nowhere near the help that I need. And then I was able to add another person around October that has really helped me out as well. She's fantastic, really pushes and kind of has that drive, right? Like, I want to support the best. I want to be the best, like almost to the point where at first she was kind of telling me she was bored. Like, hey, I can do more. I can do more. And then it was funny. One day she called me and she was like, I am so stressed out. I'm like sitting in the corner crying. Like my husband's looking at me funny. And I said, oh, welcome to SBA. Like you're now initiated. Like you can stay in the club. So it's kind of funny, but so she helps with my email, but then also has been working with the borrowers up front to start working on the closing items right away. As soon as it gets into underwriting, we'll start working on those closing items, and that's been extremely helpful. I think it's also nice just to have somebody else that kind of shares in working on stuff with you, someone to talk to, someone to kind of say, hey, this person's doing this person's doing that. I actually took a couple of days off between Christmas and New Year's where I didn't even touch my computer. And that was probably the first time I've done that in 4 years at least. But when I came back in, I had to call her and be like, hey, give me, like, put me back on track. I have no idea what I'm doing, what deals are where. And so we probably on the phone for an hour sorting through. She's like, I did this, I did that. Like, this is where you're at with this one. This one needs work. This one needs that. So it was really helpful. I do think I probably need one more person. I don't think that I know that. If I had, I would prefer to have her do more of like the spreads and working on the closing stuff, because she's great at that. And then if I had somebody that really just monitored my email and my schedule and my calls, I think then I'd be in a really good spot. I think I could do, the next level, get to 150, and then probably would need another person to try to go past that. So that would be ideal.
Oh boy. Oh. Okay, so where do I even start here? So I think my question was, have you had to make sacrifices?
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, and you're looking to go to the next level. Geez. So yeah, let me back up here. Wow. So, because that would be look, if you did 150 million with an average loan of 1.3, then you, and of course it's a team effort, right? This isn't just you, but like just for your production that you're bringing into the institution, that would put you in the top 30 ish lenders in the country. So you basically outproducing about 1,500 banks. What kind of confidence do you have where you feel like you're going to do that? Like, where is this confidence coming from?
I don't know. I guess I've always been a fairly confident person, which I probably get from my dad. But like, I I don't know. I guess I just, why not? I mean,
Why not?
if you can see it, I clearly can see a path to doing it. I think I can do more than that. You know, if all I did all day was market and talk to referral sources and talk to borrowers, I could, the sky's the limit at the end of the day.
Why though? What are you saying that is so effective in the market to attract people to do business with you?
I think being authentic, but then also, like, I would venture to say that in the last 2 or 3 years, I've done more business acquisition transactions than anybody on SBA lending. And with that comes experience, comes confidence. I've also bought 2 businesses by myself. I've sold one. I've been there, right? I've been through the process. So when I'm talking to a a business broker, for example, I completely understand the all the ins and outs of what they do. I've done more transactions than anybody, so I have the experience and I know how to look at every deal from a structure standpoint. And so I'm adding value for them, right? I'm putting them at ease that if there's a transaction there that can get done, it will get done. And so they feel comfortable in working with me. I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just completely understanding all the way inside and out how the transactions go. And it's not like you're telling somebody what they want to hear. You're you're answering questions legitimately, and you're, helping somebody get a transaction across the finish line. And
Yeah, so
yeah.
in other words, you're actually an expert. You're not just writing on your LinkedIn header that you're an expert.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's that, and then it's almost like a little bit of like an advisory role, right? At the same time, I mean, there's so many transactions where I'm looking at a a deal from the front end, and I can tell a buyer, hey, you need to structure it this way. You need to add a seller note this way. You need more working capital because this is going to happen. You need to switch this to a stock purchase because this could happen. And these are all things that I've actually experienced either personally or, through all the transactions I've been doing. And so you're adding more value, that. And then speaking with buyers and sellers and referral sources, investors, like, I put deals together all the time too. And so it's a little different than just sitting on your hands waiting for a deal to come across your email. Then you kind of, oh, I'll work on it today, let me get it and send it over. Like, I guess at the end of the day, like, I want to be the best. And so you can't be the best by not trying, to get there.
Well, yeah, you got to set the bar high and then work to meet or exceed those expectations. And is that a mental shift you had to basically take at one point? Because I feel like the natural starting point of a BDO is, let me go find some deals, then let me go see if I can sell them the credit, and let me basically be running back and forth over here. Whereas you've kind of elevated yourself to an advisor. When did you make that shift? Like, was that a mental shift you had to basically make to put your kind of empower yourself to actually do what you need to do to get these deals kind of going here?
Yeah, I think there's like 2 things. One, I don't know how to explain it, but like, if I get into something, I get into something. Like, I will become like obsessed with it until I really understand it. Like, I'm not going to your BDO retreat, unfortunately, because I'm in a wedding in Maui. Well, with any free time I've had over the last like 3 weeks, I've been like basically learning about Maui. And that's just kind of how I am. Like I will dive into it 100%. You know, if I'm going to do something, I want to be really good at it. So I feel like that's kind of what I did with the whole business acquisition process. It was probably like 2012, I think, is when I kind of decided I like doing these transactions. They're difficult, they're challenging, but they're really cool. You're watching a business change hands. You know, you're taking somebody that's got an opportunity to buy a business now and take over. And it's way more fulfilling than somebody buying a building and moving, right? Or you know, I mean, of course, you know, startup stuff is challenging and is pretty neat to do as well. But I feel like just with acquisitions, I liked it, and so I just really dove into it and tried to learn as much as I possibly could about it. And then it just becomes repetition, right? The more transactions you do, the better you get at it. The more stuff you see, the more you learn. And I think that's kind of just, it was probably about then. So it's probably 11, 12 years ago that I said, this is something I want to do. I also felt like I wanted to find a way to be a little bit different, because back then there was probably only really a handful of BDOs that were doing it. And so once I kind of said, hey, this is what I want to get good at. It's fun. Then, you know, so I was like ahead of everybody else that now is jumping into it in the last couple of years.
You know, what I think there is a really powerful lesson that's coming through here, kind of going to my, you know, sort of point about, hey, this is all this work you've kind of put in over the years is coming to fruition now. That's why now is when you need to do the 150 and push yourself to the next level and capture all of the fruits of the labor. It's not just of this year and this week and the Friday night, but it's like, it's the entire last decade has been leading to this moment. And that is an interesting lesson. It's a powerful lesson because a lot of people, going back to Amazon, they want it now. So business acquisition has been getting really hot the last few years. So everyone's jumped in. But who's actually winning? I see you. I see Bruce Marks, who did very similar to what you did in 2015, I think it was ish. Went super into business acquisition. Now he's up there. Lisa Forrest at Live Oak, you know, she's been doing these things since I was in diapers. No offense to Lisa, but
she's amazing too. Yeah. And then, I mean, yeah, you have Heather, who was with Live Oak.
Went over
Brian
to the dark
Kroge.
side.
Yeah. Kroge's always done liquor stores.
Well,
you know, just acquisitions.
Well, he's so dialed into his community too in Detroit, in Michigan. So it's like, that's the lesson. You've got to do the hard work and put in the 1,000 hours, you know, to get to 100 million. You need to do that first. And then, and only then will that occur if you stick with it, do everything you have to do, and keep yourself at that super high level. But no, there's some sacrifices that are going to come along with that. And we want to be transparent about that because it's not for everyone.
Definitely.
All right. So are you not seeing deal fallout this year?
I feel like the last couple of months, it's been more of a lot of like people searching for a business, or they find one, you start working on it. You think, okay, they put in an offer, we're going to work on this. Nope, doesn't go through. All right, start over, do it again. A lot of that. I'm not having many like get canceled halfway through. I think, you know, you have some here and there. I want to say like the last 6 months, I've maybe had 2 or 3 that were in closing that canceled for whatever reason. You know, most of the time it's some kind of disagreement between buyer and seller. I've had a couple that the landlords end up ruining it. You know, I mean, I'm sure you've been dealing with that too. They've been difficult.
They have this year, but what about between LOI and purchase agreement fallout?
No, I haven't had too much of that. I usually give them this like kind of speech of, you know, hey, I know you've got an LOI here. It's a page and a half long. I strongly recommend that you guys get together right now and hammer out anything that you're thinking that you're going to want to add to the purchase agreement. Because if we go through this whole process, get you approved, order appraisals, order everything, and then everybody gets involved with actually putting the purchase agreement together, and there's one sticking point and it blows up, you're going to be really frustrated that you spent so much money on this and so much time and energy into it. And a lot of them will listen and they'll start like kind of hammering that out right away. But yeah, that is definitely something that we've had to deal with over time, right? With people kind of throwing together a 1 or 2 page document to try to get the deal off the street, and then once they actually sit down and go through all of the items that need to be addressed, there's some sticking points and they get in trouble there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that I'm seeing more deal fallout this year only because, with the rates having increased, the cost of capital is higher, and so the ROI for buyers is lower. So, on the flip side, sellers, they might not be getting as much as they would have got if they sold, a little sooner. And so getting buyer and seller to come together has been a little tougher. And so, when you can stretch to get there, but then you uncover something, in the quality of earnings, or, the landlord's going to up your rent or this or that. It's like all these little changes, last year made a big difference for me, versus the previous year or 2 years ago, where it's like the rates were, low and SBA was giving out free money and sellers were selling on the best year ever. And, every deal was getting done, but I'm surprised you haven't seen it, more deal fallout considering those factors.
Yeah, I guess maybe I've been pretty fortunate, and hopefully it's not something that's coming down the road. um, yeah, I think the other thing though is like you started to hit on a little bit. We had a lot of lenders that traditionally didn't do business acquisitions jump in when there was 90% guarantee, or
Right.
there was no fee, or there was what was it, 6 months of payments. And then on top of that, what everybody's kind of forgetting about is the premiums were probably double what they are right now or close to it. So you had lenders kind of going outside their normal box and doing stuff they normally wouldn't do. Then you had rates double nearly, and then now some of those deals are struggling because those deals that cash flowed at 1.25, 1.5, and then you double it, and now they're just breaking even, or having some struggles. Now those lenders that had jumped outside the box are going, well, I don't know why we did that. I don't want to do this anymore. And we're starting to see a lot of lenders pull back out and not want to do business acquisitions, which I mean, I've literally had BDOs call me and say, I have 4 deals for you. I have 5 deals for you. Here you go. We're not doing this anymore. We're going back to real estate, or, we're just really clamped up. So I think we're kind of seeing it go back to normal a little bit. The normal players are still there. And so that might be some of what we'll see as well. I'm kind of curious if rates go back down again, if those lenders will come back in. I guess it would probably be tied to like premiums at that point. If they can't make money on it, or make as much as they were at one point, then it's likely that they won't come back in.
I doubt a 1% lower rate's going to change a ton over the course of the next year or whatever it's going to be. But I am seeing what you're seeing. It's like, I was shocked that they stayed in as long as they did, to be quite frank. There wasn't a lot of folks wanting to do $5 million airballs. I was like finding a needle in a haystack, a lender to do that back in like 2019.
Yeah.
Now it's like, people entertain it. Going into like what you're doing on a day-to-day basis then, because you like you said, you like to go and market and talk to people, get out there, and that's what you're good at. That's probably your best use of time, obviously. How much of your time is that versus the other stuff? I guess break it down just as a pie chart for me, like between sales and marketing, reviewing new deals, and working through your pipeline, getting the deals through the pipeline.
Yeah, I wish it was primarily working on marketing, but it seems to be more of working on new deals, taking a look at them, seeing if they work, working on pre-qualifications of listings, which I guess you could consider still kind of marketing. That's a good majority of what I do. And then just working on deals that need some love, either in credit or closing maybe. And then I'll try to get to a couple conferences a year. I find that works. And then of course, podcasts, try to get on LinkedIn, Twitter, and try to get some of that going, but definitely not as much marketing as I would like to be doing. Hopefully I can make that, a little bit more of a priority this year.
Well, careful what you wish for. And you probably will be needing that third assistant soon. But I have noticed you've been putting out some content, and that is, obviously something that I'm a huge proponent of. You're doing the podcast before you buy or sell a business. You've done how many episodes now?
I need to check 20 something probably. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get that going a little bit more on track now and get some more stuff out.
Here's one of the questions I get a lot. Maybe you could help. And then, you're putting out multiple forms of content now, video content, and balancing this production. The complaint I get, I've been teaching this at BDO Retreat for the last few years, and even at Flagel conferences about marketing and this and that. And one of the things people always say is, I don't have time. How are you doing this? I don't have time. And they do not 100 million. So how did you manage to find the time to do that stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I kind of feel like I just had to, right? Honestly, I think the challenge that I was seeing was I was going on LinkedIn every now and then, or I was like actually checking kind of what was going on. And I was seeing people post, essentially calling themselves an expert in doing it. And I was getting kind of annoyed because I'm like, you're an expert, but you did 15 million. Like, okay, I guess maybe I need to actually get on here. And to be frank, like when we did the first time I was on the podcast, I got a ton of like people reaching out to me after that. And so I said, okay, this, I need to do this. I need to like actually push myself. And then last year we were at the BDO retreat, you kind of talked about, doing something different or you have to push yourself out there. So that's why I came up with the idea to like start talking to my kids. And then, I really want to just find a way to spend time with them and get them involved. So I was trying to find a way to like juggle any kind of free time I had with my kids, but then also do some more marketing and then be different all at the same time. So it kind of just worked. But yeah, I think honestly, I don't have a lot of time with it. It's been difficult with the travel and then trying to get people in front of them. And then, I mean, you totally understand what goes into any kind of content and with the podcast, it's not easy at all, especially put out good information. And so kind of like I just said, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to force myself to do it, and just found a way to do it.
And that kind of goes to, what you said earlier is, it's just this thing where you push yourself, and you force yourself to grow. And that's how you kind of get to this point, because you can't just, keep doing the same thing every year and expect different results. And, kudos to you for actually doing it and getting it done and, sticking with it. So I think that's awesome. And, I'm excited to, see what you do in 2024.
All right. Well, hopefully we can get to 150.
All right. Road to 150. Here it goes, guys.
We'll see.
All right. Well, thank you so much for hopping back on, Jared. Good to catch up.
Of course, man. Thank you.
All right, that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode of the Art of SBA Lending. And if you have any feedback or suggestions, email me at ray@artofsba.com. Until next time, ta-ta.